Well, thank you all for being here and for joining us for today's presentations and conversations. For those of you who are not familiar with HEKLER or who we are, my name is Nataša Prljević, and together with Farida Sahajev, we will be speaking to you as members of HEKLER. Some members are here as well, for example, Jelena. We are a transnational platform and community of art and cultural workers, merging artistic, pedagogical, and organizing strategies in our work, where we center collaborative and collective practice. We continue questioning the role of arts within movement building, strengthening feminist spaces, radical imagination, and international solidarity. Many of us come to you from the unceded territory of Lenni Lenape. We stand in solidarity with Native American indigenous peoples, leading the movement for resurgence, decolonization, and reclamation of their homelands. In our work, we support the struggle by questioning the power relations, extractivist, cultural, and institutional agendas, and the arts as a system that facilitates inequity. So we are practicing and both in practice and theory, questioning how we can actually come to kind of equitable futures. We had pleasure to meet with all the artists today individually, as well as Rachel Klipa, who is a curator of the exhibition Among Women, Contemporary Art from Serbia. Today we will hear from artists Maja Simić, Nina Todorović, Milica Ružičić, Vahida Ramujkić, Tijana and Aviv Krublanski. And we are especially excited because some of the collective practices that will be as well shared within space. This being said, I would like to invite Rachel to tell us something about the exhibition and collaboration.
Thanks, Nataša. I first want to thank HEKLER for being open to this collaboration and for all of the amazing discussions we had. Faride and Nataša, I want to thank you for working with the artists, talking with them, and really getting to know their practices, and for putting this program together. And I'm really looking forward to today's presentations and discussion, because I'm interested in the questions that can arise from this program and how it could be applicable to the research for this project. So as Nataša said, I am Rachel Klipa, and I am the curator of Among Women, Contemporary Art from Serbia. And the exhibition, it features artwork by 11 women artists who are deeply connected to Belgrade. Planning for this exhibition began in 2018, and the concept developed over time after several trips to Belgrade and meeting with many women and other cultural workers. Questions arose about how women make art and why, and more importantly, how do their art practices congeal? Based on the artists selected, their education and practice-based graduate work at the University of Arts in Belgrade revealed a critical touch point in regard to the basis of their artistic concepts and influences. What seemed at first to be an eclectic mix of artwork and art practices, ongoing research unveiled that all of these women approach their work from personal perspectives that comment on their lives as women or share views about economics and globalization. I'd also like to point out that this exhibition no way represents all women artists in Serbia, nor is it conclusive in its scope. If anything, I see this as an initial inquiry, and I'm really hopeful that the exhibition can grow and evolve over time. The exhibition is up until January 9th in Pittsburgh, and then it will go to the Bronx River Art Center and will open on January 21st, 2022. Thank you.
So we will, thank you, Rachel. In terms of the structure for today's event, all the artists will have some time to present their work, and we will have a short break after the third artists, and after when everyone presents, we'll have a room for Q&A. We will let you know when we are on like 2 p.m. or 8 p.m. mark. And if you wish to stay a bit longer for conversation, you're welcome to do so. So I'm happy to invite first artist, Maja. to...
Thank you, Natasha. I'm really thankful for being part of this, and I think the project is great and everything around it. And Rachel, thank you very much for the invitation. And now thank you also guys from HEKLER for now organizing all this. Now I've made myself some notes and I'll try not to talk too long. And we'll start with a little video. I'll see if I can share it now. If it works. So this is a video that I created in 2019, and it was actually a remake from a video work that I did back in 2003 or 2004. And I had to remake it for some technological reasons. And it was displayed at the Cultural Center Gallery here in Belgrade within an exhibition that was called What is Printmaking Today? And the curator, Ljiljana Činkul, she was asking what printmaking is today. So that was part of it. And I'll show you now some pictures from the actual exhibition. Do you see them now? Do you see the pictures? Yes. So this is the frame, the work that was exhibited there, and people looking at it. And then there were also some body prints which were exhibited as part of this collective exhibition. And I decided to guide you through my exhibition that happened the same year in 2019 at the Art Gallery of the National Museum in Kikinda, which was a retrospective. And I thought, because many works were exhibited there, it will be good to go just through the exhibition and then show you also some other works. So here we go. It was called Corpus, referring to the body, which I use a lot in my work, and then also to the body of work, which was shown. This is a self-portrait. I'll try not to explain too much about the works, so we'll just go into the gallery, and it's a self-portrait from 2005, so I'll just go on. So here's the first room. The exhibition was displayed in 3 rooms, and one on the right, one on the left, and this is the first room that we enter. And on the wall were 4 prints from a series which I called the tables. And the tables were part of an exhibition of my first whole exhibition that I had in 2003 at the Graphic Collective Gallery in Belgrade, which does not exist anymore. And that's also an interesting topic to talk about, but perhaps not now. And I'll show you, these are some photos of the actual exhibition. And here you can see on the left some of the tables, and then there were wedding pictures or wedding portraits which made one part of the exhibition, and then the beds. One you can see here in the back, and you will see those pictures those prints later. So what I tried to do with this exhibition was to analyze the phenomenon of marriage or a relationship between 2 people, and try to depict my comprehension of it in prints. So going back now to the Corpus exhibition, in the same room where you've seen the tables, which were part of the marriage exhibition, are also other tables which I did at that time. And with each table I was dealing with some topic that concerned me, like there's some ecological themes or thinking about time or relationships and so on. Now you also see the showcases in the room, and I use them to put some objects into them and some installations or perhaps arrangements of objects. On the wall here you see a print which I made, I think, in 2002, and it was called Over Rocks and Eggs. And now I connected it with this installation that was placed in front of it. And I made it out of eggshells, which my late grandmother collected for me over the years, and with some rocks that I brought from Australia. And here are some other showcases filled with objects. And see, there are various objects arranged. Now, objects or things, like I call them, they're very important to me. They're on one side, they're the objects that I keep, which have a special meaning for me, and they're also the everyday objects. They are both significant for me. Now, these objects that I keep them in my great-grandmother's suitcases, and I actually need them to be able to start the creative process. I take them, I look at them, and then I'm able to immerse deeper into myself and start being creative. Because I keep them in Kicking at my parents' house. I can't always use them, so I've created a folder with photos of those objects, which I call material. Now, there are certainly some references to the maternal, to the material, and so on, but I won't get into this. Now, you see, it's various objects. It's a map of Vienna, it's some bags, it's scissors. These are some tiles from a pool in Croatia, my grandfather's dyes, feathers, various stuff that just has special meaning to me, even a cab card for a cab in Australia. Here's another picture of this. And this one shows some etchings that I did in 2000 or 2001. So you see, as opposed to the objects that you've seen before, which are some kind of memorabilia or some almost sacred objects, these are the everyday objects, which I also find very important. And I won't get into my relation to the everyday objects now, it would take too long, but I just wanted to show you. Here's another showcase with an installation. There is a dish with my face printed on it, and also another dish with my hair. And so another view of the installation. And this is the opposite view of the 4 tables, which are part of marriage. And now on the left side, there is the entrance to the room where I displayed my newer works, which I call the imprints of the soul. And on the right side, there is the entrance to the room where I showed my body prints. And now perhaps you can already see that there is that the ambivalence between the body and the soul is one of my themes. So now we're going into this room with the body prints. I started printing the body in 2002. It was actually a coincidence. I was doing some photos, I put some pigment on my skin, and then I wanted to wash it off. Went into the bathtub, and I saw that the body is printing very well in the cold bathtub. So I started thinking about this, and also at the time I was thinking about printmaking a lot, as I'm a printmaker, and I was looking for a way to do printmaking in my own way, not to just do what was expected from me in the very traditional sense of printmaking. Here are some more pictures. On the left, you can see the wedding portraits from the marriage series, and then again, and also the beds from the marriage exhibition. Here on the right are some self-portraits, which I made very early, at the same time when I was doing the everyday object etchings. And here's some, this work is called The Dreams, but I rearranged it this time for this exhibition. It was made a bit different. So I'll try not to get too much into detail. So I'll just show you the pictures of the body prints. This is the room with the body prints. And now there are again some installations, and you can see this is also a traditional print from my studies, and also some pieces of paper where I printed my face on. And there is a catalog from an exhibition that I had at Belgrade Gallery in 2016, where I showed the prints of the body, which I made from 2002 until 2016. And I'll just go through this, show you the pictures of the prints just quickly. And so there are the series of beds, dreams, bathtubs, and wedding portraits. Right, so we're going back now to the corpus. Another installation. What you can see on this little display on top, that's the old framework from 2003. Which I've done a remake in 2011. And then here's the installation with some documents of my grandmother. My father destroyed them for some reason. Back then I didn't understand why, but I collected them and I displayed them together with this broken mirror. So the pieces of my grandmother's documents and the mirror were mixed there. So now we're at the entrance to the third room, which shows the imprints of the soul. And it is guided by the ladies that are on display now at the exhibition Among Women in Pittsburgh. They're called On Dry Land. And the heading refers, it refers to the Serbian saying, like a fish on dry land. So, because in slang, the fish also means the woman. It's the woman on dry land, and it's actually a woman that can't do anything to change her position in society, in relationships, in the environment she lives in. So I'll try not to get too much into detail. Just, I think perhaps just by looking at it, you can have an idea about this. Okay, so we will be entering now to the third room with the imprints of the soul. And so these works deal with what's inside, not the body, not the actual body that's printed, but the feelings, so everything that's not visible. And I had a break in doing art. Actually, I somehow lost the strength to deal with the big topics, the big issues about the position of women or the new media in printmaking, or all my fights that I had with my work. And then I stopped working. I stopped doing art. And after a while, I felt really sick. I had to come back and start working again, but I had too much other stuff going on. So I had to work during the nights, and quite often I was sleepy, and it was really hard for me to start again. But then I started doing these portraits, at first only the heads, and then I started doing these figures, and this was back in 2012. And I just continued doing those. So I'll show you now some pictures. So this is all the imprints of the soul, but I'll show you also how they were displayed in 2016 at the gallery, at the art gallery of the Cultural Center of Belgrade. So these are now the pictures of the exhibition. So it was called Digital Imprints of the Soul. And here it's how it looks like, how it looked like. Meanwhile, I've done other works. Okay, so now we're back at Corpus, and here's the third lady. She was placed on the wall in the back. And there were a few other installations or arrangements. This one was devoted to Australia, the Australian plants, and here is a blanket from the flight to Australia, also some sand and rocks and other stuff that I collected and stuff that has some special meaning for me. Here is a mask of my face, which I did maybe 20 years ago, and it's one of the objects that I use, and I also used it for some of my prints. And here I placed the actual mask on some soil that I collected in my parents' backyard. And now, speaking about the mask, this is one of my newer works. It's a self-portrait with a mask, and I mean, the reference to the current situation is quite obvious. So here's some of the imprints, which I'll just quickly scroll through some of the newer works. Perhaps we don't have to look at all of them. And well, I wrote a thesis about self-cognition or self-development through making art. And I've come to the conclusion that it's actually possible to become a better person or a more fulfilled person by making art. And although I'm very tired of everything, I still deeply believe that we can all become better by doing art and also by looking at art. So although I'm a bit quiet now, I still firmly believe in it. And now here are some pictures of the actual process of how I did this. I mean, I started doing these figures more than 20 years ago, and it was really hard to make them because the computers were really slow and the image processing programs were very basic. So it took me perhaps 6 months for one of these figures to complete. Here are some pictures of prints that were not shown in the exhibitions. They're called the housewives. And this one with the flowers on the head is called the 8th of March, and this one is called 10 minutes. And so I won't get into detail now, but it also has to do with the position of women in society. And here the baths or the bathtubs, the photos of the prints and how I assembled them and how I made the prints in the end, how I created them, or the outprints. And here's how I made one of the tables. So I printed the faces and I actually painted the table into red. I mean, I could have changed the color of the table, but I wanted to have it red and so on. So these are the components of it. And here's another work that wasn't shown. It was called The Printmakers, and I wanted to talk about the traditional printmaking and the new printmaking, and I mean, it has not changed much. There are still a lot of people who just can't accept the new media, and this was part of my war for the acceptance of the new media. So I made this, and it's about giving life for art, and does it have to be toxic? And I mean, it's childish questions, but that was one of my older works. And so that's it. That's all. I hope I haven't talked too long. No? Okay. Okay, I'll stop sharing now.
Thank you, Maja. The next artist we will be hearing from is Nina Todorović.
Okay, here I am. Thank you. I have to say I'm very happy to be part of this project. So thank you, all of you girls, for this great collaboration. Anyway, let's start with my presentation. I have PowerPoint presentation. Just a moment to share it. You should be seeing my slideshow now. Okay.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. Okay, I'll try to be as quick as possible. First of all, I have to say that my work is based on research and exploring the cityscape, architecture, living in the city, and also not interior and exterior parts of the city, but also some metaphysical parts of the city, metaphysical aspects of the city, like alienation, solitude, loneliness, communication, lack of the communication, and similar themes. And I'm expressing myself in different media, so you'll see I'll show a lot of photos. And I decided to present my 3 major projects now that are overlapping, and they're intertwined now. So basically it's one huge project that I'm working on. So this first part is architecture of memory. This is my PhD art project that I defended my thesis in 2014. And I started this project by making these photos of what I call it imprints of old houses that are left in the leaning walls. So I started in the beginning of 2000, when this transitional period in Serbia started, and we seem not to get out of it still. So at first I made analog photos, and for me they were just representing ready-made finished compositions, painting compositions, like abstract painting, because I'm basically a painter. Afterwards, I started researching more and digging into some family archives, because my father is also into photography. He is a doctor, but he is a good photographer also. So I found a family archive that is kind of valuable thing for me. So I'll show just a few photos that I'm making. I'm still making them. So it's more than 20 years now that I make those under construction sites photos and imprints of old houses. The basic thing for me is that I have to have this poetic and emotional approach to my work in every way. And I'm dealing also with themes that I find very important, like changes in the city, changes in the society, but I do have to have this emotional approach to that. So while, I'm sorry, I have this problem. Okay. So while I was researching also family archives, I stumbled upon photos that my father made. These are the photos of our old house where we used to live until 1978, when it was demolished here in Belgrade. And it was taken right before the demolition. Because of the reconstruction of the street. So it was also a starting point of my architecture of memory PhD project. And I started making these, let's say, ambient installations hanging from the ceiling or in the space like that. I use a lot of transparent and semi-transparent materials. So most of my works are like that on those materials when it comes to ambient installations. So here we see these photos that my father made, and also slides that my father made. On these slides, there is me as a baby. And these photos are overlapping and showing the past time and everything that doesn't exist anymore. Next thing in this project are objects that I started making also in this family archive. I found this, it's a negative on glass. And it's a very valuable object for me, representing my grandparents and my father as a baby. And it's more than 80 years old. So I found like 5 or 6 of those, and I decided to preserve them somehow. So I made these glass boxes and started exhibiting that in first exhibitions, because I made several of exhibitions on this theme. And they were all different because I always changed this setup, even though I exhibit similar works, but I always change the setup and the whole story. So next phase was to imitate those negatives and to make small prints on plexiglass that are also showing still frames or sequences from family life from our family archive. I'll show you different setups. Okay, so different photos, different kind of setups, and everything about it. And so, yeah, this is very important photo for me. This is me, and my father took this photo in front of what was once our house, our family house, built in the beginning of the 20th century. And it was right after the demolition. We moved into an apartment, and this is where probably it started, this whole poetic of mine, because when I read Gaston Bachelard and his Poetic of Space, I found something that was interesting for me. And he said that there is a dynamic unity between man and the house, and dynamic rivalry between the house and the universe. So at that point, actually, we lost our whole universe, because our house was the whole universe for us, and we lost that kind of universe, and we had to rebuild it and restart a new one. The second photo I will explain later. I will just say now that it is called Decoding of Memories. This is another installation that I'm doing, and I'm also making variations of that in different exhibitions. This is a still frame from my video work that I tried to confront or to make a dialogue between me and my father and what he did in his videos and his photos, and with my video. So on the left part is his part of a video that he was making. It was an approach from the inside to the outside. He was filming the whole house inside in some other very, very difficult moment of his life. And I was approaching from a different side, from the outside, searching for the place where the house was. It was kind of a psychogeography strategy, and of course, I know that where the house was, and the place is still there, but there is something else built on that place. And I was researching in my art project whether there is still aura of the place and the spirit of the place existing. So the final conclusion, one of the conclusions, was that this aura still exists in our memory, because I'm exploring my personal and collective memory also. So that's about it. I mean, there is a lot more about this project, but I'll just stick to this now, and I'll answer questions later if there are any. And now we are going to another project that is called Mapping of Deconstruction. That is actually a continuation of architecture of memory. So I was invited to do a solo show for the Museum of Applied Art in Belgrade in 2017, and it was a whole new production. So I continued making these photos of imprints of houses or embedded traces of houses. But this time they were not related to me personally. They were just related to my surroundings, my neighborhood. And I will show you now the setup of this very big show that was very demanding, because the space is very demanding in Museum of Applied Art. It consists of several rooms, and it's very difficult to set up something that makes sense. So I decided firstly to put this imprint inside of the museum in the real size. So this is the real size because those were the small houses. And this is the real size of the imprint. So there are several of them in this part of the museum. Also, these screens that I made in wooden frames, those are maps that I was making. Of course, now you can't recognize part of the city, but it's not important. It's important to me only. And I was marking the spots where these imprints were. So, and of course, even the imprints disappeared. They were whitewashed, or I don't know, something new came there, and so it doesn't exist anymore. So this is another view. And these are different interventions that I made also on windows of the museum, because this shows also you can see transparency in these prints on the windows. These are my pads, my alternative pads, my planned pads, my pads that I did or canceled or whatever, because I plan all my walks when I start doing some project. Then I plan carefully everything. Then I do a psychogeographical strategy and give up all my plans and do something else. So it is shown all my plans that I had and what I did actually. And also I wanted to communicate with the outside of the museum and with the city. These are photos on aluminum, and each of these photos has 4 small copies of it in a glitch art version, so you will see that later. This is the work that you can see in Pittsburgh now. I'll just say this is kind of a digital collage, and it is showing this overlapping of walls because I feel that we are making not only physical walls between us, but also emotional, social, any kind of walls that are preventing us from communicating the right way and the open way. So this is also communicating and reflecting other parts of the city, like here you can see the reflections of other buildings around the museum. Also traces of nature of some kind that is disappearing, of course. These are just, I'll show you quickly. These are just collages, classical collages that I also do. This is another version of decoding of memories. This is called decoding of altered memories. I'll explain later. And this is glitch art. And this is an introduction of glitch art in my work in a big way, because I started it a little bit before this exhibition, but here I showed glitch art versions of these photos that you see, that you saw before. And each version of it is showing the persistence or lack of persistence of memory, and actually how we forget, how we remember, how in a different way we remember certain parts of something, other parts we forget. So certain segments we remember that are important to us, then it inevitably changes, then we forget. So this is the glitch that is happening, and we continue living, and because glitch is an error in a software. So, you know, a software repairs itself and continues working. And so do we. We continue functioning even though our memories are erased or altered in some way. Last part of this exhibition is this black monolith. Inside of it is this hologram, small hologram projection. Also animation that is kind of showing segments or details of architectural photos. some are glitched, some are just realistic. And it's kind of my question also, are we remembering everything in the right way? And do we live in a hologram or in a real life, real space? And how much is important to remember things and how much is important not to let them fade away, because this is very fragile, this is very ephemeral, and everything is decomposing or changing too fast around us, and we don't have a chance to really remember things. Next, this is just a glimpse, one quick look on another exhibition, Journal of Walking Grad Sessions in Kolarad's gallery, also in 2017. This is where I started doing psychogeographical strategies and using glitch, but this is another story, so I'll just skip to the last project that I have to show. And this is called Decoding Memories. I showed it finally in the entire size that I wanted to show in Dom Omladine Gallery in Belgrade. And what is it actually? I chose this picture as a basis of it. This is kind of a timeless moment that I took this picture in Schlosspark Egenberg in Graz in Austria when I was for the second time there, because Journal of Walking I made there when I was in Artist in Residence project, and this was continuing of that. This is a timeless moment because you can't tell when it was taken. It could have been 100 years ago, or now, or from the future. Also, this was a perfect moment for me, a moment of peace and serenity, just a brief moment. And I chose to save that and to transfer it into something else. So what is that? This is the installation view. These are binary codes that are printed on strips of tracing paper. What is important for me? I read at that time Boris Groys and his discussion about power of digital image. So he said that digital image is powerful and strong, but the original of it, and the original of it is just the set of codes that we don't see. They're invisible to us. So those are binary codes, hexadecimal codes, and stuff like that. So I decided to confront and make physical those invisible codes that are original of the image and the copy that is visible. Actually, the image that is a copy is what we see here, and this is the original. So for this image size 100 per 70 centimeters in internet resolution, it takes 45 tracing paper strips with these codes. And I used a program called Binary Viewer. So I put this image into Binary Viewer. So these are the exact codes that belong to this picture in internet resolution. So you can imagine how big it would be if I used the bigger resolution for that. Part of the show are these collages, but this is kind of a journal that I take with me all the time, and I write and I make visual notes and everything. I'll just show this. And the last part is still frames from the video, Life's a Glitch. This is, of course, wordplay. Life's a glitch, and this is also part of that perfect day and perfect moment. This is coming to the real life. From that perfect moment, I'm coming back to glitch, which is my real life. So I think I'll end this presentation here, and thank you, and I'm here for any questions.
Thank you, Nina. Before we continue, if you have any questions, just feel free to share them in chat. We'll address them later, or just prepare them for later. So now we'll be hearing from Milica Ružičić.
Hello, everyone. Thank you, Natasha. For today's presentation, since we all have 15 minutes, I decided to choose a part of my production because it's quite versatile, and I will share the link in the chat for everyone who wants to see other work that I will not mention today. I will share screen now. This is the website, you can see, but and I put it in the chat. But today I will show you just some recent works I did. This is the show that was just finished in Belgrade. This is a new show, and it's dealing with the subject of anxiety, which is some kind of which is an emotion that is now completely contemporary, general. I feel that people now are suffering from anxiety, like generally, because pandemic arose much of it, and especially like new capitalist, neoliberal system is making us feel anxiety every day, since you have to run the rat race, like to pay the rents and stuff you need to pay to be able to declare yourself as an individual that is worth living in this world. So this this is the work that is named Tachycardia, and it is representing rib cage with the heart. This heart is actually interactive sculpture. It triggers, the public triggers it with its motion sensor, and then it's beating very fast. It has a hammer inside, and it's beating in the wall, so it's a kind of sound, and visually it's moving. So it's interactive sculpture. I only have photos here. This is the work Bruxism. It's actually representing a feeling of glass teeth that are worn out and crashed by themselves. Like when you are feeling anxiety, usually you sleep tightly locked Milica. I'm not sure how to say this on English. And then you actually can damage your own teeth with this muscle. Then this is the work that is called Fear. It's actually representing the look of fear, like the eyes that are looking in fear, which means that the pupils are quite wide. And this is also interactive sculpture. So these eyes are moving left and right like this, like somehow like a scared person. So this, and it's actually representing some kind of scared look, like the change in your perspective when you are in fear, which means like you see the world differently. This is how the eyes look. Here is some older works. I'm not I didn't put this in right order, so big jump way back to this work. No, I will go different. I will finish this about the exhibition. So this is the work Fear of the Eviction. This is a mother and a child that are living in fear for 5 years already. They are in fear to be evicted from their house, apartment. They actually are they have some kind of complicated legal issues about this apartment, which is they don't own anything, so they are not guilty. They are just not recognized by the system. They don't exist for the system, not because they are illegal, but because they it's quite complicated to explain, because they are some kind of third faces in the judging postupku, which is not, I'm not sure how to translate. It's actually, they bought this apartment from the investor, and the judge is actually expelling the investor from this apartment, not recognizing that the investor is not owning this apartment anymore. So it's a complicated legal issue. This painting is actually having a hole here where you have the peephole on the door. There is a hole you can look through. So when you look through this peephole, you see this other painting. It's actually a police in front of the apartment. Usually police is guiding the evictor. So this is what they are in fear of. This whole exhibition is dealing with the subject of the anxiety, which is not irrational. It's the rational fears that I chose to represent here. So these are the fears like we see here, becoming homeless. It's a rational fear everyone has. So also there is another painting in this. This is also a drawing from this exhibition, and it's called Surveillance. It's police surveillance on the protests of the citizens that are joined in front of one house of one family that was also evicted from their home. So this is police recording the people protesting this eviction. And this is also another fear that I choose to analyze, is fear of losing your job. And it's representing a photograph from, we all know, we locally from Serbia, we know this photograph. It was in the newspapers, and this is actually workers of the Geox factory in Vranje. It's Italian firm. And it was opened in Vranje. This was the photography made on the day of svečanog otvaranja, announcement of the opening of factory, where the president went to take photos for the media. And this was done on Sunday, which was the only free day for these workers. So they are not really happy in this photograph. I somehow had this in my mind for a long time, because somehow this group portrait represents all the phases and all the segments of this feeling and emotion of fear. So each of their faces is representing a part of this feeling that you feel when you fear for your job and survival. So you have some of them are angry, some disappointed, some are hope, and some are quite frightened. What was really sad, and I couldn't predict, but it happened, it's that 5 years later, and it happened on this summer, this factory was closed and they actually lost their jobs, all of them. So this fear came true. So they actually are now jobless. And this was actually, I started painting this like 2 years ago, so I couldn't predict this. And this wasn't the reason I started. I just wanted to represent this emotion. And I was sad to hear this news. What was bizarre is that our state gave this foreign investor 12,000 euro to each workplace for every employed person there. we paid to 12,000 euros. So it is very strange how this factory is not nationalized, or how this profit was not going into our budget, because we paid these workers from our budget most of their salary. And it's closed 5 years later. So that's where I wanted to decide, and that's where I decided to choose these massive portraits that I am representing for this presentation today. Since I noticed that it's becoming some kind of tradition, and this is one of massive portraits that I did a few years before. It's called Strike of Borean Workers, coal miners. So it's not coal miners, they are miners, but it's a mine of bronze and gold and bronze. And it's a quite big and important mine and factory in Serbia, because it's actually most of the money is, budget money is somehow relying on this industry. And this is a strike that happened in the 90s, when these miners were striking against, I'm not sure it was this Milošević, or because this is a found photograph from the archive of the National Book Biblioteke, which is a book not shop, not sure how to translate this also, but this is where you see miners at strike. And also there is a few more group portraits that I analyzed. It's actually probably some kind of fascination with, and yes, this is like, these are immigrants. And this painting I did in Slovenia when I was on summer residence. And this, the reason I chose to paint this group of immigrants was because this show in Slovenia was traveling on this through the borders, like it's been in Slovenia, Italia, and Austria, which are very guided borders for the European Union. So these immigrants are hardly going to cross them. And I wanted them to travel these borders, at least on this painting. So their faces represent some kind of hope and also sadness because of homes they lost and their home countries, and a new future which is not knowable, how they will end and where they will end. So I actually realized that my whole practice is actually dealing with this human as a part of society, not just as an individual, but as a piece of a larger group of individuals, or actually group of people who are actually sharing some feelings, some destinies, and some same emotions because of their similar uslovi is conditions of life. So this is yes, this is one of the also older works that I did, and it's now in the Museum of Contemporary Art in Belgrade. It's representing factory workers of Jugoremedia. Here we can see factory workers on this part of the painting, they are actually fighting to keep their factory working, fighting for their jobs, to save their jobs. This is the police, and this is the private security that was paid by this local businessman who was actually taking over the factory without lawful license. He was actually trying to steal the factory somehow from the workers. So they actually fought and managed to keep the factory for maybe 10 years longer to work. This factory was actually producing pharmaceuticals, which was a local production. But in the end, their struggle was lost also, because we all know that pharmaceutical companies do not give chances to local production of pharmaceuticals. They closed all of our factories here in Serbia. Almost all of the factories for pharmaceuticals are closed here, because we are now just a marketplace for buying foreign drugs. I can maybe mention this. This is like drawings made also in front of the apartment. These are the people that are defending. We have the organization here, which is called Za krov nad glavom, which means like for a roof over our head. They are dealing against these evictions. So they are actually standing with their bodies, guiding people from evictor when there is a reason to believe that it's unlawful and it's not justice. So this solidarity people are here on this drawing. Most of my drawings are on this dark colored papers, because somehow I choose this dark color to represent the reality we live in. This is also roof people guiding the apartment. This is one of newer drawings, which was actually, it's an aquarelle. It's hard to explain this. The subject is and the title of these works, these are two works, is referring for a local film from Srđan Dragović, Lepa sela, lepo gore, which was done in the 90s. This film was representing the war in Bosnia. And I chose this reference to this title. I chose this to call Nicely Burning Police Station and Nicely Burning Notre Dame, because it's really beautiful. I mean, some kind of this aestheticization of horror was some kind of a subject I wanted to deal this with when referring to these two works. And I think I can show you also this new, this video from, no, I will not show the video, but to refer the works on this exhibition that Rachel chose is Godišnjak, annual. It's actually group photographs of yearly annual, and I exchange all the faces in these photographs with my face on this photograph, because these are my school pictures and kindergarten pictures, referring to the connection of memory and subjectivity, kind of perspective from your own eyes, like looking everything around yourself from your own eyes, giving it the shape of your view. So, and it can also be referred as this group portraits that I am obsessed about, like a person in the society, like as a societal subject, a subject of society. sorry for my English. It's really not. I didn't practice it for a long time, so I will not take more of your time. It's I think been 15 minutes. Everything else you can find out on the link in the chat. Sorry for
Thank you,
prolonging.
Milica. It was a great presentation. So we are not going to make a break as planned, so we're just going to continue and then open for the conversation. Next artist is Vahida Ramujkić.
Okay, sorry, I was looking where I am in the screen. Okay, so hello everybody. I'm going to share the screen. I just want to say that in the exhibition, which when Rachel invited me to take part, I felt a bit strange because I realized, I mean, that like most of the works I've been doing last years or decades are done collectively, and like rarely I'm invited to, I mean, I do some works individually, but like most of my practice is collective. And so I invited Tijana and Aviv to present two works, which we do, I mean, separately, but like two different works, which in different stage, like periods we've done collectively but with many more people, but like Aviv and Tijana is main, like most closest collaborators. It's Mini Pogon Collective and Documentary Embroidery, and I will present another work which is also a long-term project, I mean work called Disputed Histories, and all of them are like long-term works. This is something very specific that they are more processual, and they develop through time and have different stages. And okay, I will, and this is just like an example, because there was lots of other works also which could be mentioned, but like we decided to focus on or I decided to focus on this when together with Rachel, when we spoke what could be presented in the exhibition. So I will share the screen in just a second. So the work Disputed Histories, I initiated in 2006 through I started collecting history textbooks from on one traveling through the countries of former Yugoslavia. I have to say I was living then abroad. And this was actually one of the reasons like that after, I don't know, like 9 years living abroad, like brought me back, like more things, but this was something I got interested in back then. And I started collecting these different history books, like from different periods when, and maybe also it was a bit late, but just then I started to realize how interesting it is that there was all this kind, like actually there was proliferation of different textbooks with different narratives in all like former parts of ex-Yugoslavia, which, as you know, like there was a war in 90s, which took like was from 91 to, I don't know, 2004. And as each of the former republics separated, like to war or like just separation, like peaceful separation started, like they had, the first thing they had to do is to introduce new history narrative into curricula. This was the first thing to change, also like geography and language. but history was very specific because it was like something as like history is kind of science. So it was like introducing completely different normative into like how like this collective history like happened like retroactively, no? And history also together with the language, geography, and I don't know, this like a common official knowledge was, and it is still like super like powerful tool for like constructing new collective identities in those new formed countries, let's say, in each of the countries. And like then, how to say, like I realized that it's a very like violent process, but it was easy to say. It was necessary, lots of work like to prove it and deconstruct it and to analyze. And so that's why I initiated, and there was too many of these books to read and go through, and there was lots of work. So I started with making up the library. So for, I don't know, I think all the people here know like, how Yugoslavia looks like. So this is a kind of puzzle I make for the people. I mean, when there is people like foreigners, they are mixing, they don't know, like they're very confused with parts of Yugoslavia and which is which country. So I made this to explain to the people how, you know, which is which country and how, what happened and so on, like a small like a tool. I want to stop sharing just to show now. No, I didn't have to stop sharing. Sorry. I want to show the just the website because there is can I share? Okay, do it like this. Yeah. So this is the website. Then still then you see, like in 2007, then I started this like library register, and like all the books have their insignia, and I don't know, ex libris, they are like registered and partly digitalized. And it took some time to recognize that this could be conceived as a artwork, actually. And this happened in just after a couple of years when I started. I was invited to present a work to the Biennale in Banja Luka, no, in Banja Luka, sorry. Yeah, doesn't matter. In 2010, it was like big exhibition. And I said, okay, why wouldn't I do the workshop? And because it was somehow, I didn't want it just to show the books, but like to put this in function somehow. And until then I was also not sure how this could work as an artwork at all. And so then I started to organize, like, so for example, this first okay, maybe better I will go back to the presentation. Okay, so this was the first workshop, and I insisted that the workshops take more days so we can comparatively analyze the textbooks. Like, so this was just the first workshop where we took to analyze the last 50 years, how they are explained in like the newest history, because like in 90s there was just there was different stages of this historic revision, and the biggest revision happened just in course of the wars from in the 90s, and then just the like all different also because until 90s, let's say, we had one more or less solid history which we all refer to, and for like it was very slightly changing, you know, like from 40s to like end of 80s. But in 90s with the war, there was like also like the system of education started to change, and like as the capitalism comes in and like let's say like liberalization, there's also liberalization of marketing. While you had previously only one editorial that was like related to the Ministry of Education in each like republic or so, and like all the, I mean, the history curricula in Yugoslavia were adjusted to one like a kind of version, and was changing with the how like politics were slightly changing. Then suddenly with the beginning and mid 90s, there is like a much more editorials on the market which are allowed to do their versions. And it happens that even in one country, like, I mean, these new form countries, you have very different narratives. And this is all multiplying. There is huge deregulation. And then we have another stage, which it's slightly written here, like, and this is when the Democrats come, and there is new normalization, like all this nationalistic chaos, where there is a series of policies on European and international level where it was necessary to like there was an intent to homogenize like this, like to make one. It was all like mostly related to the discrediting communist and like socialist past. So it was like normalizing totalitarianism, like equaling fascism and communism. And there was the series of these steps in the policies, which like influenced also the all educational programs. So, I mean, now, for example, in Serbia, it is interesting that the history books have like the monopoly has the German editorial, like HEKLER, for example, which has its succursals in lots of Eastern European countries. But okay, this is the background story. I mean, it's important, of course, but for us, it's important because all this socialist history is like how to say, erased or relativized, like for us, or I mean for me, and then that's why I also wanted to widen this process of studying these old textbooks, was to like somehow bring back the socialist narratives, or the point of view where from where these histories were written, and like somehow to make this continuation, no, where when it was interrupted. I'm sorry if I'm talking a bit okay, so this is like how I expose it in exhibition a place, for example. There is this, like this in particular was the topic was, okay, every like exhibition or followed by the workshop has like a topic. So I selected only the textbooks which concern the topic. This in particular was related to a joint history of Serbia and like Kosovo. I mean, it's not officially, it's not politically correct to say Serbia and Kosovo, but doesn't matter. So there was students from Kosovo Kosovo and people from Serbia. They took part in this workshop, which also took 3 days, and we made this comparative analysis of the history. It was history textbooks, and it was really amazing, just how there was no information, and there was no possibility to have knowledge of these young people, what is written, what is the official history in the neighboring states. So there was lots of new findings, and okay. And this was another workshop, doesn't matter, I will just skip. It was related to migration. It happened in Germany, in Berlin, and this was again another one in Banja Luka related to the Sarajevo attentat. And because there was some anniversary, and so we took all different textbooks, blah, blah. And so what is important, each textbook, each workshop is the material result of each workshop is this collage, like a textbook, which we make directly. And when the workshop is finished, the textbook is finished, it could be copied, photocopied and distributed. So it's like the workshop is like workshops are considered in the way to they have discussion part and also working in a small group, and they manually produce with a photocopy machine and scissors and all these glues and markers the new issues. And those are some of these issues, and you can see some pages just as an example. And just to say, part of the methodology is also to, in the beginning, I asked people sometimes to introduce themselves by putting themselves in the history. So, and to explain then in the way to understand ourselves as subjects of the, protagonists of those history from which we are usually very alienated, you know? So, and I would say in the way that the ultimate objective of this work is to create some possibility, maybe how we could, for conceiving this joint collective historic narratives, which would fit us somehow, no, fit our needs and so on, and to be also in charge of it. Okay, those are another images, how this is displayed just recently in Autostrada Biennale in Prizren and in Museum of Yugoslavia. Yeah. And actually this whole collection of textbooks, which now has around 400 books. I forgot to say that in the time I widened a bit the criteria. So I started to collect textbooks of other social sciences like geography, language, citizenship, or how you say, religion, and textbooks also from another countries which somehow relate to Yugoslav history or similar. And now the whole collection will go to Museum of Yugoslavia for a permanent custody, and they will take care that this work continues also being accessible to the public researchers and so on, and that workshops continues and so on. So I think this is it. Yeah, this is the fit.
Thank you, Vahida. Great project. So the
Okay.
next one, I think it's Tijana with Mini Pogon Collective.
Okay, hello everybody. I will try to be quick. I mean, we don't have much time left. So I will talk to you about our joint project or a collective that we started at 2017 at the end. So there is 4 of us as a basic group, as a core group. I don't know, Vahida, me, Danilo Pernjat, who is also an artist, and Chao Sing Tai, who is a scientist, and he's from Malaysia. The others are based in Belgrade. All of us are based in Belgrade, but also out from Belgrade. So I will read to you now our philosophy behind Mini Pogon, so I'll be sound really correct. So Mini Pogon is an experimental production recycling plant that explores alternative methods of production, cooperative relationships, self-management, and develops the concept of equity with an economic foothold. It is a project that implies intervention in the field of work and culture. It's the construction and a new creation within the marginal and discarded. The production plant for making objects from recycled plastic works through inclusion of marginal social groups. And there is resources uses the rejected and byproducts of a modern capitalist society, whether it is a raw materials, plastic waste in this case, or human resources, refugees, as a direct consequence of globalization, the unemployed, etc. In this sense, the project is trying to create a field for the production of new values, but also to create a place where the politicization of production relations will be practically feasible and possible. We are discussing an intervention in order to create material conditions for social equality, rather than as it is common practice in liberal culture, irrespective of them. So basically, to put it really in short, we try to make, we made a small production plant that is using plastic as a resource. From discarded plastic, we then make different objects. And through this small plant, we are also dealing with the topic of how the work is distributed. So we are trying to make between all the collaborators to make this horizontal structure, and also we are concerned with economical equality within all the participants. And I will now share the screen, just to share the website. Okay. So the beginning was, of course, to make those machines, and we made them. We wanted to make them ourselves, to be completely in charge of the means of production, and through making them learn how to work with them. So we made them. I'm not going to open each of these images because I think you can see them even now that are small like this. So we made these machines in Praxa, and we use these blueprints as open source from the internet. It's from another organization. I'm not going to go now into this because it will be too long. So we worked in Praxa. It is a workshop that is open to basically everybody, the neighbors. This is a project from NKSS. So those associations who are part of this collective can work in Praxa, and also the neighbors. I don't know, so you can see we made, so these machines are basically, you can make them from things you really easy to find. And so then when we had the first machines, of course, we started to work in front of a day center Mixalište, which is day center for refugees, because it happened that all of us were before Mini Pogon working or helping the migrants in different ways. So this was because the Mini Pogon, this power plant, was initially meant to test, to arrange some kind of self-sufficient economy for the people who are outside of the system. So because in those days, the refugee crisis was really in the peak, it was natural that we were working with them. So these are some of the people. And this is Chao on the left, and these guys who are passing through. So, but after Mixelište, we got permission to work in a camp, Krnjača, camp for migrants. Okay, I will just, this is, you know, this was our first product, for example. And the idea was that from selling these products, that we share the money between the people who were participating in making them. And different people joined during the making of the machines, you know, even some tourists would just pass by. So then this was our first action in Vienna, actually, in the green market. So we had the workshops for 1 week with different, also we organized these public debates with different speakers talking about issues of labor, also, you know, the ecology. So we would organize every day some lunch for all the participants to get together better. So then, as I said, this is all Vienna, different people. So finally, we got the permission to go into the camp and we got the studio. Our studio was here. So in the camp Krnjača for refugees. And there we form this small workshop, which was open to everybody, whoever is coming and who wants to join. From time to time, because this camp was mainly for young male, I don't know, travelers or refugees. So for them, this was really interesting because usually, you know, workshops that are organized in the refugee camps are approaching them a little bit, you know, as children. For example, these art workshops that are, but this is the first workshop where we were talking about labor and their plans, because mainly they want to go to the Western, you know, Europe to work. And we were very curious to see what are they imagining, and with some of them it stayed in touch, and I don't know, it's not that, I don't know, the stories were different. Not many of them are still living the life they expected to achieve when they reached the country they had to go. So these are different machines, how you operate them. But the main thing with this studio in the camp, because the camp was closed for the people from the outside. So if you are coming to the camp, you have to have permission, you know, but we made a sort of a precedent in this case, because not many of the people from the outside are coming in the camp. But with us, every week, we had somebody coming to visit our studio, our friends, artists, and once then later, this mini-poem practice developed in a way that we had this open call for young designers with the idea to make some useful products out of plastic. And this is when we collaborated with the students from higher education, I don't know, College of Arts. And it was 20 of them working on these designs. So it was very interesting because we invited them to come to the camp. So I'm just making an invitation. This is how we, for example, this is a place where a guy is selling in a storage where he's selling plastic. So we sometimes have to buy plastic because usually the plastic we are getting is from the people who are gathering it around the streets of Belgrade, which is really easy to acquire, you know, because everywhere you go there is trash around the streets. And also some people, our friends or people who know about us, they are bringing us their own home plastic. So these are the, so at one point we invited all these 20 kids to the camp, which are the similar age as the boys who were living there. So this was in a way interesting encounter. This is from another project with some squatted boat, where we also made this, I don't know, small, this vehicle that you can see, the carriage, I don't know how to say it. Okay, so we went to the market in Belgrade, different markets to test how you can sell those products. And so these are, I'm sorry, I'm jumping. So these are some of the designs that this university students made. And I don't know, the idea was that this goes into mass production, even if we cannot produce that many objects. That's another thing, that our factory is not suitable for mass production. This is a slow factory. This is Murtaza, my favorite person in the camp. So and also there was Reza, another friend. This was the exhibition in the cultural center around Minipogo. This exhibition then traveled to Zagreb, so you know. And okay, these are some of the products. This is the first line we had, the balls of different kinds. And yeah, so this is because we made our machines ourselves. So then we were invited, for example, in Albania to help one organization with building of the machines. This was our first commission like this, and it was really interesting. We were building these machines for one very remote village in Albania. And this is a picture of this village. It was fantastic. I don't know, there were 3 river canyons. It was really a great experience. So this is our exhibition in a small gallery of Ulupuds in Uzumirkova. And so we also had the workshops there during the exhibition. It lasted, I don't know, 1 week, I think. So this is the ending of the exhibition. We met artist Bermet. She was making food from the discarded food that she collects in the green market. So she made a dinner for us. It was really nice because we didn't have any program for the finissage. So now I'm the very important object is the Barak bar instead of the golden bar. So its weight is 1 libra, and this is in a way as a how much plastic you saved from the environment. I mean, environment from the plastic. And the barak, as one of the barracks in the camp, it's also, the camp is really interesting itself. It's from the organization or a company, even Milutinović, that used to build infrastructures, marine infrastructures in Yugoslavia and abroad, but they are mostly bankrupt these days. And this camp was first for the workers of this company, for the seasonal workers, then for the refugees from our war, and now it's for the refugees from the Middle East. And it's different in structure because it's closed. It was never closed before. So we are slowly coming to an end. We started to build the last, okay, doesn't matter now. So this is another action that Nila initiated. We were planting trees in one of the streets. They didn't succeed. Here is Rachel visiting the camp. So I don't know which ball is exhibited. So here is from some, I don't know, we were selling in some, I don't know how to call, Siam, you know, with the small crafts. And it was really successful because it was in some company buildings. So the business people were buying it a lot. And then another project in Lesbos, we were also building these machines in the Refugee Day Center. Some French organization invited us to help them. This was also very great experience. So finally we made the 4th machine, which is injector, again in Praxa. But I forgot to say that we stayed in camp for 1 year after our project, which was funded from ECF, was finished. So they expelled us. because also the politics of the camp changed a little bit. They got more authority to not to care much about the people who live there. So they decided just to offer them place to stay and food. So they did not need any extra workshops in the camp. So then we made these birds for a friend from Vienna. We made 100 birds for her adhesive project. It was really a great cooperation. And then, of course, with the barracks, we were, this is Ulus exhibition, haunted camp. We also have a nice video. This you can see in our websites. And now we are, because I don't know, now we are working in Novi Sad. Each month we have 3-day workshops in the high school for design and for their students. And there are a bit more of things that we have done in the years, but did not update the website. So that's it. Thank you. How do I stop sharing? How do I stop sharing? Pause.
Same.
It should be at the top.
Okay. Thank you.
Tijana. So we are approaching 2 p.m. and would kindly ask everyone if you are able to stay with us for 30 more minutes. So we hear Aviv and open the conversation. So Aviv, you're the next.
Okay, I'll try and be brief. How much time do I have on the brief side? Okay, so hi, I'm Aviv. I've been collaborating with Vahida on developing this technique that we use that we call documentary embroidery. I'm gonna share the screen. We've started working on this in 2008. We met each other when we were both living in Barcelona, in Spain. I was with a group of friends, was organizing a sewing workshop in a squat that was open weekly, and Vahida was also organizing all these different projects in the city. And within this context that has to do with activism and social change, but also with an interest in textile craft, we came up with this idea of documentary embroidery. So how can I share my screen? Let me see. Okay, so this is the website. Our idea was we were invited to different places, and our idea was to connect to the places where we were coming to. Usually there were a lot of places that we were not from. Sometimes we also worked in our own cities and our own neighborhoods. And the idea was the documentary is the most efficient way of documenting reality because you produce less images in more time. The idea was we were always embroidering in social spaces, when possible in public space, on the street, and involving people in people telling us stories and embroidering with us. These are just, I'm just gonna run through so you just get kind of like an impression of what this felt like in different places where we were doing this. The idea was to, maybe also I should mention that because this was done, it kind of came out of the context of activism, we were also always asking in terms of when you're doing artwork, not just what kind of realities it represents, but what does it do? What does it do, the fact of doing something in a specific place, in a specific way? Is it transformative? Does it contribute to any form of change? And we were always asking ourselves to the extent of which this was the case. So there was a lot of reflection and self-criticism along the way in terms of, is this somehow useful? Is this somehow transformative? Is this just some form of representation, or is this of kind of some sort of form of activism in itself, embroidering with people, telling the stories of their neighborhoods in public space. So this is something that, you know, maybe it could be debated. We are always asking ourselves if it's the case. I don't think we have a concrete, specific answers. I have some thoughts about it that maybe I'll mention in the end. So as you can see, we were in different places doing this. One thing that we came up with in terms of engaging with people is we started opening this thing called the documentary embroidery office. This we came up in Belgrade, actually, in Knežević. We were there for, I don't remember if it was a month, and we were working next to an office, kind of a government office, where people coming to get some sort of stamp for their car or a hospital appointment or different things. And we decided to open our own office right outside of the office, and it was called the embroidery office. And so people would come up to us because they saw we were sitting there in front of the official building, and they asked, I need to get a stamp for my car, or I need to get a doctor's appointment. And we said, I don't know, that's 2 doors down. This is the embroidery office. If you want to tell us a story about your neighborhood, what's interesting about your neighborhood, or embroider with us, or make us a little drawing that we embroider. This is where, and in this particular case, we really integrated into the general kind of office bureaucratic culture, and the people from the office ended up bringing some tea out for us, and so we were doing our tea breaks just like regular clerks. This is the different tapestries. And so one thing that we came up with, it's like actually a technique that we sort of stole from some other people that were doing it, using it with drawing, was that we decided that we wanted to create a form of organizing that's collective, but it's somehow non-hierarchical. So in terms of making different people participate, but it not being like that we just have our idea and we kind of tell people which part of this idea they should do. We came up with this idea that people can do whatever they want, really, as long as there's some very, very basic protocol that connects all the different embroideries to each other to make them a kind of a collective work. So one of these ideas that we used several times was the idea of an alphabet of the neighborhood. So we gave people a square of fabric, and then they would we would say we need to represent all the letters of the alphabet, and then they would come up with some story or some saying or some drawing or any sort of anecdote that they thought was somehow representative of the city, that has to do with a certain letter of the alphabet, and then the whole tapestry was the alphabet. It was kind of like the kind of alphabets that you give kids, school kids, when they're in the learning the alphabet. And then in some neighborhoods, of course, there were neighborhoods where there were different cultures and different alphabets. So we came up with this idea that an alphabet doesn't really have to, it could be just completely mixed alphabet. So not even just one language, but several languages appear in the alphabet. So one thing, I don't want to go for too long, but maybe one thing that I think we realized, and I think this is why we chose embroidery, is that when you sit in a public space in a neighborhood and you're embroidering a certain sector of the neighborhood or the village or the city, approaches you, and it's a different kind of person that would come up to you if you say you wanted to document the neighborhood and you came up with a big camera and a camera crew. So like a certain sector of the neighborhood would come in. If you're sitting around for hours and hours on end in a neighborhood embroidering, then it's like a different kind of person that would come up and tell their stories. So I think we saw that it documents a part of the neighborhood where people who are maybe less protagonists or less looking for protagonism come and tell their stories, and we thought that was kind of interesting. The other thing that's we found interesting about embroidery is it's something that's familiar to people, so it doesn't feel like some weird performance art that you're doing in the street that's kind of what is this? It's something that people recognize, and at the same time maybe it's not done as much or not as done as much in public space. So it does attract attention as something kind of strange, but at the same time, there's something familiar about it. People recognize it as work. People see you stitching and people recognize it that you're doing work. And even a lot of people asked us if we're selling them or what they were interested in to find out what the economy behind this practice was. Which was a little bit difficult to understand because the art economy is not maybe it doesn't add transparency. Let's say if we were funded by some art institution, but that's a different issue. I don't know if to end it here. So we have time for conversations and questions and that kind of stuff. Unless someone, Vahida, has something to add. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Avi. Yeah, so we can open floor now for questions. And just before we do that, I would like to acknowledge, which I didn't do at the beginning, the situation in Serbia now and the ongoing people's both political and ecological uprising that actually touches upon many of the issues that have been mentioned throughout different works and by different artists when it comes to ecological justice, kind of rapid neoliberal extraction of resources, of distortion and exploitation of workers' rights, human rights, as well as the precarity when it comes to position of art and cultural workers, which we are facing as well in the United States. And it was interesting to have, especially for people present here who are in United States or immigrants to United States when it comes to discussing educational system and kind of discontinued histories as a result of conflicts or hegemony within the education. I mean, United States is definitely an example of genocide denial and how that actually reflects, the education that is shaped by capital and not ever having, government-controlled textbooks, for example, but actually having from one state to another, from one school to another, depending if it's public or private, generating of certain ideologies. So I don't want to take too much room, but I just wanted to say, shout out to everyone who is on the streets claiming space and agency, both locally and also within diaspora, which is exciting that that's happening as well. And yeah, so are there any questions? If you have any questions, feel free to start speaking.
I actually have a question for Maya. I feel like I saw an aspect of your practice that didn't have a chance to see in your when we had our conversation, and with the exhibition that you shared and kind of like the experiences of marriage, scenes from the marriage. we saw a lot of the work, but I'm also curious to learn more about some of the concepts that you were unfolding, working on the project, and you were focusing on. There's a lot of embodiment, and also there's a lot of experiences and emotions and senses that are revealed in the piece, but I'm curious of what were some that you were more focused on.
Thanks for the question. I hope I won't talk too much or get into too much detail about it. So the exhibition that you saw, that was, I started doing the works in 2002, and then early 2003, the exhibition took place at the Graphic Collective Gallery. And this was the time of the assassination of the premier, Zoran Đinđić. And back then I didn't know if there will actually be an opening of the exhibition. So everything was in place, but then we had this new, I don't know how you call the, it wasn't a lockdown, but special conditions. I don't know how they're called. So it wasn't clear if exhibitions will be held or not, and my first exhibition. Well, I talked a little bit about the objects. You've seen the etchings, and why I'm mentioning this now is that I've been always trying to get to the bottom of things, to understand where it all comes from. I have this need to try to explain everything that's happening, like what is the meaning of everything. And then I thought about the objects as things that we need in life, and why do we need them? But then I came to the relationships, like basic relationships. And we all have this need to be in a relationship with someone, this love relationship between two people, a marriage. It doesn't have to be an actual marriage, a formal marriage, but this kind of life together. And I thought, what is it actually? Because it's nice, but it's also very disturbing. There is a lot of difficulties between two people who are trying to live together. And I thought that, well, there is the formal part, like and the marriage, the actual marriage, which I represented then with the wedding portraits. And usually the wedding portraits are made beautiful, like they're retouched, and people try to look the best they can. But then what I did is I printed the faces of the people who are in relationships, and I tried to depict their real faces, like with all the pores and the non-beautiful parts of the face. And I called them till death. I don't know how it's said in English, how it's called, till death departs us. So, you know, the when you're getting married and they say, we will stay together until death. So basically that's it. And then, well, that was the formal part. And then I thought there is also the social part of marriage, like the sharing of money. And I had this table with the coins from all times. I found pictures of coins, ancient coins and newer coins from all over the world, put them together on the table and printed the hands there, like they're sharing the material side, like they're sharing the money and everything they own. Then I also had the conflicts. I pictured the conflict, the sharing of bread, and then I had also this card game there. And the cards with the numbers I put on there, they actually had, I related them to the birth dates and some special dates, some special numbers that had a special meaning for those people who are there in the relationship. So this was a reference to what we bring, like our characteristics. It's a bit complex to talk about this right now. And then the third part were the beds. And I showed the emotional part in the bed, like you can like each other, but you can also dislike each other. And there isn't much to it. Like there are only 4 things. Like either you're angry at someone, or this one, or he's angry at you, or you're fine, or you're both angry. Like, there's not much to it. So I try to just get to the basis of everything and show this. So the marriage, it was about that. Did you ask me anything else?
No, thank you. That was great.
Thanks.
Any other questions? If not, I have a question. So I have, I'm curious about, well, at first, when it comes to overall kind of weaving together these like practices and experiences, how actually like decoding and coding is, you know, of like geography is also this like glitch in the system of like how actually in these cracks, there is a lot of practices that, you know, work within the cracks of the system, like capitalism, imperialism, and navigating actually the kind of like psychology and precarity of it. I would like to ask Milica, I have a question from Milica that is related to collectivity in your practice, especially when it comes to bringing fear and anxiety into a collective space. And what are your thoughts on kind of what does it mean for you to have that work kind of segregated within gallery space or institutional space versus outside of it? And then the question for Aviv and I guess kind of Aviv, Vahida, Tijana, but whoever wants to respond. How do you navigate actually and think of like objectifying refugee, what is so-called refugee crisis, because that's also like a European kind of like hegemonic definition of it, which are like ongoing migrations as a consequence of military industrial complex as well as European colonialism. So, and how, I mean, I'm not saying that you're doing that, but I'm just thinking about what you've said, horizontal organizing, distribution of resources or the labor within these processes, how these narratives that are taken in a certain community continue existing as displaced narratives, further displaced narratives when they're taken into different institutional contexts. So yeah, I guess those are 2 questions, one for Milica and the other one for the group.
Okay, this, if I understood, you wanted to focus on this, should it be institutional or out of institution? I think it's for me, like, I think the institutions are supposed to have this critical and aware and responsibility towards the public and towards the public opinions and public education and everything, especially because they are financed by the budget and they need to be like responsible. I mean, that's the responsible politics and responsible behavior to have critical thinking and critical art in the institutional context. Out of the institution, I think out of the institution, you could have like markets and stuff, which is profit oriented, or because it's where the interest is private. Where you have private interests, then you have private profits. Where you have public interests, then you should, that's my opinion, have public responsibility. If I understood the question right, if not, please correct me.
And also, just to kind of like expand on that, because you're an educator as well. So I'm curious in terms of the topics that you deal in your work, like do you extend it, and I assume that you do extend it into like pedagogical space as well, like discussing these issues?
Well, I don't have much space to discuss these issues because I teach art, which is not very much connected. I mean, I need to transfer some parts of the knowledge which are specifically like practical. So these are the ideological stuff which are supposed to be taught at philosophic departments and political departments, or sociology departments. So I'm not actually teaching this kind of, but I'm trying to teach kids solidarity. That's what it's all about. Like we all need some, like to understand what is to live in society with other people and to have solidarity and empathy with other people. Like we all are individuals, but we have we are parts of collective. We don't live on the mountain. Like no man is an island. So we should collaborate with people. We should be able to collaborate, and we should be able to understand the world around us and the people around us, and to see ourselves as part of these masses, as part of these people. We can find similar things with, like we are individuals and we are different, but we have similarities with many people. Like we should focus on this is what unites us, what is that we share together, and not what individualizes us, because we don't have to claim this individuality. It's already there. I mean, when you look at people, everyone is different just by the look and special. So we should, I am trying to focus on this stuff that unite us, like where we are the same, where are the stuff that we share together. And that's why I'm trying to, yes, I'm trying to teach kids solidarity and collaboration.
Thank you.
Thank you for the question.
Okay, so I try to remember, the question was related to the migrant crisis, refugees, and how do we objectify it, or... But I will explain from my experience and like what, how was my involvement and my perspective. Like when in beginning of 2017, after this very cold winter, there was a big alarm of the refugees in like all the train station, where there was in like this old building which was emptied because of the works that were going, reconstruction works, like building the new part of the Belgrade. So the train station was in a process of partly abandoned. So there was like more than 1,000 refugees living there in very poor condition, like extremely poor conditions. And then suddenly, as there was alarm, a lot of like people from everywhere, like activists, started to gather there, and I also joined. And I started to come every day, and there was lots of like need to like, there was like thousands of problems from intoxication, because they burnt like toxic wood from the like train tracks, and there was no food, like lots of diseases, scabies, horrible, like it was like a hell, really. And then it was still winter, people started to join and to organize from all different parts, and like something was going on for like 3 months, like this place became the center of the world for me, you know. And I was also wondering like why there is no local people. There was no one, like for local people, this was like the place of the fear. Everybody was avoiding it. But okay, and there was like there are really lots of effort put to like somehow make this all this place to bring it to some kind of normality, but very interesting normality, because it was kind of like really everything self-organized, and it became somehow super joyful, but there was a lots of, you know, like to prepare food, to like, I don't know, like cut the wood, bring, like to organize like normal life somehow, or organize the cricket tourneys and like all these assemblies of volunteers from all different parts and the refugees together and so on. And as there was a problems, for example, with serving food, because there was queues of like 300 people, like for the dinner that we were serving. I mean, and lots of intents to collaborate with the refugees, but like so many different languages, and like I realized that there is a. While I was coming there, it was also because this was like I was going there primarily to also to help, but also to learn really from these people, because for me this was like a source, like the only source to learn about the reality of the world, you know, like, and this like incredible experience, like of like them coming, why they are, you know, like motives and like ways of coping with this situation and the wars and so on. So and somehow I had this idea, like with also different people who work there, how to inverse this situation, that it's not like us who are coming to help, to, you know, because if you help, then you are like immediately the hierarchy is made because you have something to give. But like instead that there is some, if there is exchange, like we then can be in a position of equality. But we have first to value this, what these people can give us, no? So for example, there was a language, because lots of people didn't know English, and there was no way to organize like this, like when there is a queue for the dinner, there was like it was very, very difficult to control the chaos, you know, like people are pushing, blah, blah, and they make jokes in their like different languages, Pashto, Urdu, I don't know, like Dari, like all of them spoke 3 or 4 languages. It's amazing. We speak like only 2-3 languages, you know, like, so we started to make these dictionaries, but dictionaries for us to learn their languages. So we can, when we start, and then it became like super popular, this, we made it together with the refugees, this very small, like dictionaries for Pashto, for Urdu, for Dari, for Arabic, for Kurdish. And like just knowing this, simple things and jokes and starting to talk these languages, the situation suddenly changed, you know, like everything started to be deep. And also the function of these dictionaries was to, like, we distribute it to the like people around in the shops, and you know, this change, like in the city, and this changes a little bit the perspective of the people, like look, like all these languages, it's like you know what they like. And you know, like when other people come from other places to your like your place of living, it's not that they have to integrate. It's like that simply the situation, like everything changes, the context changes, and we all have to integrate to this new situation. So this was a part of this, you know, like, and I think all this like programs of integration and so on are like, in this refugee camp where we worked with Tijana, with Mini Pogon, they had like this, they organized excursions to take people to the church or to, to make them understand like where they came to, like to Serbian culture. And so it's so humiliating, like they have no culture and so on. So this is completely, ignoring and so on. So I think this is something what we tried also to do, to say, like, look, like we have lots of things to learn, like. From them.
Thank you, Vahida. Comment. Susan, do you want to maybe share a question or comment, or you're just saying goodbye?
It was actually a question, but perhaps it's too broad for this point. I just said that being in Pittsburgh, and I'm a friend with Rachel Klipa, it's just been wonderful to see the work in the gallery live and to experience it. And I just feel so fortunate to have been able to do that. And thank you all so much for this talk, to fill in so much information about your explorations and methods and so on. The question I had was just, I was wondering if participation in the exhibition has spawned any new collaborations among the artists in the exhibition. Or perhaps it will.
I mean, we haven't had any new collaborations yet, Susan, but I think just working with HEKLER on this is a new collaboration for this exhibition. And I think as it moves forward and we think about programming, I think that there will be new collaboration in many ways among the artists, with us, with different organizations. So to be determined. Excellent.
It's a wonderful cross-pollination.
Definitely.
Are there any other questions?
Sahar and Yelena have questions.
Oh, cool.
Sahar, do you want to go? I saw your hands, Fere, so.
Hi, thank you all for your presentations. Thank you, HEKLER. This is really amazing. I was going to ask Aviv, how has COVID affected this practice of embroidery and kind of solidarity and coming into the neighborhood and not using cameras and all these kinds of overlaps that are happening? How has COVID kind of affected this sort of social experiment?
Well, actually, it's a good question. It's been, because now, I'm at a different situation. I'm very far from Vahida. I'm collaborating with my partner Anna on very related, similar projects in our neighborhood where we live, and we started the project out by several months of embroidering with people using the techniques that Vahida and myself developed, and slowly grew this, and it came to a point where what we were doing now, which it kind of grew out of this kind of explorations, is that we had a kind of online community radio station that we started, and around it we were trying to start, or we did start a local market. So because we were interested in the question of livelihoods, and we're interested in grassroots organization in our neighborhood, which is a very particular neighborhood here in the north of the UK, of which maybe not the time to go into detail with. So of course, when the question of lockdowns and stuff started, say one of the people that we're working with here, she said, actually the pandemic that I'm been working against is isolation. So she perceived that actually the kind of ongoing long pandemic in in our neighborhood and probably in similar neighborhoods is the fact that people are isolated. So the fact that people were forced to isolate was quite tragic, actually, in this situation. When this happened, we had to decide at some point whether to close down the market that we were organizing or not. And we asked people, actually the people that we asked were the most vulnerable, elderly people, people who were in wheelchairs and stuff like that. And we asked them, should we close the market? And they were, they were like saying like, no one's going to shut us in, close us in the houses. We're not going to isolate. But of course, very soon afterwards, we were forced to close. We couldn't continue. And then we were closed for several months. The whole issue of engagement, I don't love this term, was very challenging. The fact of like people coming to the market and it becoming kind of flourishing economic and social space, it was very challenging for many months. And actually when the first lockdown was lifted is when the market took off and started to flourish as a kind of a space for people. That's where suddenly it was like this kind of gratifying moment where we were like saying, oh, actually this has taken on a life of its own. So it's dialoguing with the situation, not in the most ideal way, but I mean, this is just a story. I don't know if I can produce any conclusions that could be like taken from this to, I don't know, is there a similar situation? Can you learn something from it? We're still figuring it out, what kind of learning can be done. I don't know if that answers your question.
Thank you.
Can I?
Yeah, of course.
So I have a question for Nina. So first of all, I want to thank you all for amazing presentations. And I really enjoy, Nina, your work. It's so, diverse when it comes to media and thorough in like exploration. And I'm wondering, like in this decoding process of memory mapping, how you navigate your emotional response to certain images that emerge during the process, and how much there is space given to the emotion itself to be perceived as part of the code as well as the glitch.
Thank you so much. Obviously, the emotional part is very big in my work, and I don't know. When I do my works, it all starts with some sort of emotion, and it continues that way. So then I try to broaden it up with maybe even some theory that I'm reading, and I'm trying to combine things, like following the paths that are opening in front of me. So I'm very open to all kinds of things, and I don't know if I can answer precisely to your question, but yes, emotions are very important, and this poetry of the whole thing is very important. But that doesn't mean that the themes I'm talking about are just poetic and l'art pour l'art or something like that. For example, I was very emotional when the city of Belgrade started to change. So, it was an emotional time when the 2000 came, because, we were participating in all those protests, and we are still in the protests and uprisings of all kinds. And, one of my responses, besides being a painter and besides reacting directly to this visual part, was also emotional, because, I noticed that some parts of the city I can't recognize, and that was kind of disturbing for me. So I tried to figure out how to deal with that, because there are situations when you go into one part of the city, which is, for example, not very far from my home. And then after 2 months, if I go there again, there are sudden changes, like unrecognizable part of the city, like new buildings are suddenly appearing I always, I mentioned that in the interview with Rachel, you know, I always mention that movie, The Dark City, where, you know, it's a B movie, where there are some strangers that are during the night changing the city. So the citizens are recognizing the city, but they can't find parts of the city they search for, you know, and where they live or something like that. So I feel like we are in this kind of situation, that some stranger who is not very fond of our city and our country is making this whole mess, and we can't really control it. And maybe also out of that came this whole research that I'm doing. You know, this is short time, and I wanted to mention many other things, but you know, it's a very thorough research that I do. And you know, one of the reasons I started this, not only because my family and family memory and, you know, like personal memory, but also like I didn't like the changes that were happening, because the city is a living thing, you know, it's moving forward constantly. It is something, it's a living creature, and it's normal to change. But, you know, I'm asking myself and all of you, is it okay? All those changes are not okay all the time. And we are going to different transitions that are not very good for citizens here. And, you know, in the whole world is happening the whole mess. But, you know, I'm reacting to my surroundings.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank
I
you.
also have a comment, semi question for Milica, like to kind of extend upon the what you shared related to education system in Serbia, art education system, and the way how we are incorporating these conversations in the classroom. So I'm curious about the climate within, you know, the how you say, educators, in a sense of like having art workers being seen as a cultural workers, that they are like immediately, you know, participating in a society as such. Even though the program is maybe not allowing those themes to arise and like for people to be thought as, you know, self-organizing within their own art practices and potentially collaborations, like do educators feel the urgency to change the program, to kind of create some curriculums and participate in program shifting, especially considering the urgency when we talk about mental health, and your, you know, work is related to fear, and we have mental health crisis. We have uprising that is happening right now, which is like amazing, but it's also, you know, the really important thing that will help this continue is understanding of how fear works, because we live in the country where government is using that in a big extent. So kind of, you know, informing art students that they have the power to kind of speak to this and like be, you know, engaged in conversation that will decode the language that is, you know, created and kind of cleaned from responsibility. So I'm just like wondering when that shift will start happening and when we will see that as our role as artists.
I will try to answer, but there's a problem. My battery is low, so maybe it will turn me out in the middle of the answer, or I should get the cable. Not sure, but let me try to be quick. Like the art department where I teach is actually not the art. I mean, we are actually preparing students for the work in animation. Like we are trying to go to 3D animation, so it's more like we are preparing them to be workers. It's not hidden from the education that they will be collaborating and working in some terms. But what you said is important subject, and we are trying to put it as an agenda of our udruženje, association. Vahida is also active there, and Tijana, and we do collaborate in our association, and we are trying to put these subjects as an important themes for our colleagues of artists to reclaim this work as work, and try to fight for the being artworking being paid like as well. So we have this whole program, we call it Fair Practices. So it's a whole team dealing with this subject, and we are trying to put this as an agenda everywhere we can. So it's kind of like, do we have a honorary from this conversation now, for instance? But we are trying to put this awareness to our colleagues, because it's still, for years, it's been quite dealt with art as some kind of fascination and some kind of personal hobby or search, or something that is your own personal interest, which is quite misunderstood. So not sure if I answered it whole, but maybe Vahida can.
Yeah, I was wondering about schooling system, like institutional like schooling system. That was yes, I was more gearing towards that, discussing about.
I agree that our academies do not prepare you for this, and they don't prepare you for much of the stuff. So, but I'm not working there, so I cannot push the promenade there. What I can do is like around me, but about everything else we can speak publicly. That is also some kind of work. So help, join us and help.
Can I just comment on this, because I teach printmaking?
Yeah.
So I do actually work at an academy of arts, and I have my students, and it's very important to me. I do actually try to make them aware of the world around, and foremost to try to make them become better people and see better the world, just not to take everything as it comes to them, but to really learn to decode what they're seeing. So there is the program, and it's very formal, and it's becoming increasingly more and more formal, and it's becoming harder to actually be free and speak freely to the students. There are lots of there's a lot of administration, and you just have to do the administration all the time. You have to follow the program, and I think it all started with the Bologna system, which I think is actually destroying the higher educational system. It looks good on paper. It seems that students can go from one university to the other and just travel around and study everywhere, but you have no freedom anymore. You have to actually follow this administration, and it's blind for the real education. Now, I would like to work. I would like to look at the sketches of my students and just decide what we will do now, just to follow what's going on with them. But then, on the other hand, I can't do this. I have to follow the program, and the program doesn't have anything to do with life, and it's just not a good way to teach. And because I have kids in kindy and primary and secondary school, I can say that the educational system is just a nightmare. It's horrible. It doesn't have anything to do with education. And there is nobody who is teaching people to actually think by themselves. It's everything else, just not learning to see things and to think. And I went to primary school in Germany. It was very different. I have this experience. I know what a good school is, and I've been fighting in primary school here to make it better. But yeah, most people just don't see that it's wrong, that what's going on is very, very wrong. And also at the academies. But still, I'm trying to follow the program, and at the same time, I'm talking to my students about everything. Like every second week, we have online classes, and then because we can't do printmaking, I speak with them, and I also show them the process through the window without commenting much. I just say, you know, there are protests going on, and I show them through the window, and then we talk about other stuff, and well, I find my way to get some ideas to them and just make them think.
Thank you.
So to go back to Milica's questions about compensation for this conversation, since we are all volunteering our time being here, we are almost at like 3 hours of conversation. So maybe to wrap up and to thank all the artists and all the artists, everyone present, all of us for making it happen. Thank you all for the questions. And I don't know if there are any like last words before we go off Zoom, please share. It was really a pleasure to meet you all, and I'm sure that we're going to continue being in touch and collaborating in some more concrete way.